You've heard of Sleeping Beauty, but did you know there are fairy tales about a sleeping prince, and they are beautifully dark and disturbing? Content warning for later suicidal ideation. We're starting with an Armenian story called Nourie Hadig, which means little pomegranate. The story actually starts out with many of the tropes we see in Snow White. A husband and wife have this beautiful daughter named Nourie Hadig, and every month the mother asks the moon who is the most beautiful woman in the land. Normally the moon says, "You are the most beautiful," but then one day it says, "No, your daughter is." Mom gets sick with jealousy, and then the dad comes up to her and he's like, "What's wrong?" And she's like, "I'm not gonna be okay unless you kill our daughter." It said the man was sick with grief but felt he must somehow cure his wife of her illness. So he tells his daughter, "We're gonna go to the forest to try and find help." The two of them go to the forest, and then he's like, "Okay, daughter, wait right here, I'll come back." And he gets out and just leaves her. She waits like a good girl for a while and eventually realizes he's not coming back. So she starts wondering and then finds this magical house in the forest. Well, she doesn't know it's magic at first. She knocks on the door opens. She goes inside, the door shuts, and then when she tries to open the door again, it won't open. So she's trapped in this house, but it's gorgeous. There's silks and gold and jewels and all that stuff. And then she finds a room where there is a handsome man asleep on a bed. But when she talks to him, he doesn't stir, doesn't move. Then a very helpful disembodied voice tells her, "You must look after this sleeping prince for 7 years and then his spell will be broken." She works for him for 3 years, and then after 3 years, the mom decides, "I'm gonna ask the moon if I'm still the hottest again." And so she does, and the moon says, "Nope, it's your daughter." And she's like, "Oh, she's still alive." So she realizes she can't trust her man to kill her daughter, so she's gotta set off to do it herself. After 4 years of the 7 years, our girl is getting very lonely, and she looks outside and sees a group of traveling people. I will be referring to them as Romani. The story uses an old-timey offensive term. She yells out the window, "Will one of you help me tend to this sleeping prince?" And one of them says yes, another girl about her age. And so she lowers a rope and has her climb up in through the rope because she still can't get out of this house. She's trapped inside. The two of them take care of the prince, and more years pass, and finally, when the 7 years are up and the prince wakes up, it's the servant girl who is with him. Our girl's like in the other room or something. And he looks at her and says, "Oh, you must have been the one who took care of me. You've broken my spell. I'm gonna marry you and make you a princess." And the Romani girl is like, "Okay." Nourie loves the prince, but she stays silent about it. And then he asks her if she wants any gifts, because apparently they can get in and out of the house now. And she says, "I just want your happiness and this thing called the Stone of Patience." So he goes to the market and he finds this Stone of Patience. But the stonecutter tells him, "You must know this, if the Stone of Patience sees that your troubles are too great to repair, it will swell and break wide open." So he takes it home and gives it to our girl, and she goes into her own room and starts telling the stone about all her troubles. This is a common trope. It's also something that happens in the Snow White from Italy called The Young Slave. In that one, it's a doll she tells her troubles to, and she tells it after threatening to stab herself. But anyway, she tells the stone, "My father left me, my mom tried to kill me, I worked really hard and I didn't get the reward." And the Stone of Patience breaks open, and the prince, who's been eavesdropping on this whole thing, understands all the truth now, marries her instead of the other girl who just goes away. But when the wedding is announced, the mom, who's been looking for her this whole time, knows where she is and how to find her. She has a ring made filled with poison and then has a servant take it to her daughter, along with a note asking for forgiveness. She gets the note, she's happy, she puts on the ring, and the ring makes her fall into a deep sleep, like Snow White and like the prince before. No one can wake her up, and it says 3 years passed where the prince looked after his wife just as she had looked after him. Which is kind of nice that he does for her what she does for him. I mean, it's a low bar. He should, but like, that doesn't always happen in these stories or life. So anyway, one day a healer comes to look at our girl, and when he's alone with her, he sees her ring and he just wants to steal it. So he like slips it off her finger to steal it, and she wakes up for a second and he's like, "Oh," so he puts it back on. So he goes and gets the prince and he's like, "I think I know how to save her, but I need you to pay me in silver and gold." And the prince agrees, obviously. And he makes a show of taking off all her jewelry, her bracelets, her necklace, everything. And then at the very last, takes off the ring. Our girl wakes up and he's like, "I would like my silver and gold now, please." And the prince is like, "Sure." And he just gets away with that. I mean, I guess he did wake her up. When the mother hears she woke up, she dies of shock at the news. and our girl and the prince live happily ever after. Now, there's a Greek version of this story that is even more disturbing called The Sleeping Prince. In this one, a princess has an eagle come to her and say, "You are destined to marry a dead man." It keeps telling her to come with it, and she doesn't want to, but then finally she does. It takes her to a palace where there's a prince who's sleeping like the dead, and it says you have to watch him for 3 months, 3 weeks, 3 days, and 3 hours without sleeping, and then when he sneezes, you have to bless him and identify yourself as the one who watched, because the sneeze will wake him up apparently, and he'll marry you. So like the previous story, our girl does this on her own for most of the time, eventually hires a maid, and then the maid is there when he sneezes and wakes up. Maid claims him. On this one, when he asks if she wants a present, she asks for 3 things. She wants the millstone of patience, the hangman's rope, and the butcher's knife. He gives her those things and then listens outside her door as she tells the 3 objects her story. The butcher's knife says, "Girl, you should stab yourself with me." The rope says, "You should hang yourself with me." And the millstone says, "Have patience." But she listens to the rope and starts to hang herself when the prince breaks in and saves her. Instead, he declares the false bride is going to hang from the rope, and he marries her, and that's what happens. There's lots of variants of this story throughout Europe, and in most of them, the false bride is a lower class person. In a lot of them, she's literally a slave, or like in the earlier story I told, part of a different ethnic group or race. There's a cool Jewish one that I found in a book of folktales from Israel. It's called The Deceived Girl and the Stone of Suffering. It has a lot more suffering. This young girl gets a prophecy that she's going to spend 7 years being hungry, then 7 years being thirsty, and then 7 years tending to a dead-like man in a locked-up house. And only after these 21 years of suffering will great happiness come her way for the rest of her life. So it happens. She spends 7 years hungry. No matter how much her parents feed her, she can't be fed. Then finally that's over, and she spends 7 years thirsty, and nothing can quench her thirst. Then one day she stumbles upon this house where there's a man lying dead, and it says she realized then that the 7 years of thirst were over, and now the 7 years of the exhausting care of a dead man have come. This one goes into detail about how she bathes him every day, washes and cleans the clothes. It said when the 7 years had almost come to an end, the girl was exhausted and on the point of a breakdown. So she, like the others, brings in another girl to help her with her work. When he wakes up and decides to marry the other girl, he asks her what she wants. She says, "I want the stone of suffering." Now he gets told by the merchant that if someone tells all of their suffering to this stone, the stone will come to life and swallow them. It says the man wondered why the girl had asked for this, but gave it to her. So he listens outside while she tells him the story. The stone became larger and larger, and just as it's about to swallow her, our dude bursts in and saves her. So it seems to be a kind of suicide attempt as well. They have a fabulous wedding, the wicked girl disappears happily ever after. Side note for any Taylor Swift fans, this really makes me think about the lyrics to Is It Over Now? Oh Lord, I think about jumping off of very tall somethings just to see you come running and say the one thing I've been wanting. And in these stories, he does. Check out my book, Dust Spells, a reimagining of the 12 Dancing Princesses, but with history and ghosts and romance. And my podcast, Folk Tales and Fairy Lore, link is in the bio.